All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to the Business Growth Factor, where we have conversations about building better businesses. My name is Josh Leyenhorst, and I'm joined here with Lyndon Smith. And so today we're talking about systems, and we're talking about operations and codifying your knowledge and your systems and your processes. And so maybe just by way of introduction, Lyndon, because this is a little bit more about what you do in your business, Expansive Edge, maybe just do a bit of an intro as far as like what you do in Expansive Edge and how that works. And then we can dive into some of the specifics around playbooks and codifying your systems and processes from there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Josh. Top of the morning, everybody. It's Friday morning here while we're doing this recording. Before I get into what it is that we do, I think I'll share a little bit more around why we do it. So you've got a business likely, or maybe you're an employee in a company, and there's always my goal through the work that we do is for people to go home feeling fulfilled in what they're doing. And by being fulfilled, there's a component of having access to information and freedom to make decisions and get things done. There's nothing worse than sitting at your desk and you need to ask your manager or supervisor, your leadership, a question, and they're stuck in meetings the whole day, and you simply just don't have the right direction to make a good, well-informed decision. And so that's the reason why we do what we do, is so that we can empower people to get things done and go home feeling fulfilled, like they actually made a difference in their jobs, right? Because it's frustrating, it's demotivating, there's not a good feeling around it when you just can't move forward on things. And
as an employer, I mean, you want your team to be productive and to not be stuck and to be able to move forward. And
nobody goes to work thinking like, how can I screw things up today? Yeah. Or how can I But so that's the very high level why behind it. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but the what that we do is we work with companies to codify their business knowledge. We build their business playbooks. We take that institutional knowledge that the leaders have, that everybody relies on them for, and we put that into a playbook so that their team can have access to that information. They can find the single source of truth, the company standard, the information that they need to make progress and get things done. If a manager or someone pops off for vacation for a week, or they're out of action because they're sick or whatever, let's say they hit the metaphorical jackpot and they quit.
Or get hit by the metaphorical bus.
Yeah, let's go with a positive here.
That's great.
What happens to all that knowledge that person has when they're not around anymore, or it's not available? And then you just got to figure things out and fumble through. I mean, you've already invested, your business has already invested time into getting them up to speed, training them, figuring out the standards that they carry for the business. Why not codify that information? Why not put it into a place where everybody that needs to have access to it can access it? And that's really what we do, is we work with teams and leadership teams to codify best practices and really what makes their businesses great.
That's a question then, Lyndon. When you say a playbook, like what does that look like? Like for anybody who's maybe not even heard that term before, what does that look like in terms of what they would have in their hands or available on their computer or whatever?
I really appreciate that question, because it's so much part of our world that I don't recognize that people wouldn't know what it would mean. But it's effectively everything that all your company's how-to information, your standard operating procedures, your work instructions, your checklists, your scripts, templates, all the data that essentially gets things done. So I think the very easy way of looking at it is it's those SOPs at the end of the day, all those processes. It all gets captured into a playbook, the how-to on getting things done, essentially.
So it's almost like a manual with all the supporting documentation and login information and all that stuff, where it's like, if you want to run this business, here is the manual. Yep. Follow this, the business runs. That's awesome. Okay.
Yeah, and we use it to onboard new hires. So if we're taking a very sort of zoomed out approach to it, what it looks like is we've got 4 pillars. The first pillar is to your company profile. So there we look at your vision, your mission, your values, your brand standards, what tech you're using, why you're using it. Like all of those sort of details when you're introducing someone to the company. That's what you want them to know. And then we take a look at the people side of it. So the second P is people. This is your org structure, making sure that you've got an organization structure in place, which role reports to which role, making sure that there's proper accountability, and then responsibilities for each of those roles clearly defined. Even if people wear more than one hat in the company, we need to make sure that the hats that they wear, those responsibilities are clearly defined so that the buck stops with someone essentially. The third P is policy. So these are the rules of the game. So HR policies, IT policies, cybersecurity policies, health and safety, environmental. Obviously, it depends on what type of business you're in, which types of policies or rules you need to that are governing your operations. And then the very last P is process. So profile, people, policy, and process. The process side of things is the really the juicy side. So that's for your lead generation processes. So all your marketing processes will live. So you develop a playbook for that. We build a sales playbook. So that's where all your, how do you now you getting those leads? Are you doing the business development to bring the leads in? How do you start converting those leads? What's the steps from inbound lead to closing a sale, for example, and getting a signed contract? Depending on, again, on the nature of your business, this would be tailor-made for your specific business. And we take a look at operations, project management. Each of these different components or facets of your business have a playbook. Administration, we build up an employee playbook, very similar to like an employee manual or an employee handbook. This is where when we are onboarding a new hire, we teach them how to submit paid time off or submit an expense claim, how to book paid time off. They can access all the company benefits here. They can access all that information that's relevant to them, and it'd be pretty much blanketed across the entire organization. So it'd be relevant for everybody in the company. So that'd be your employee manual. Stuff like the finance playbook, only your finance people will have access to that. And maybe some management and leadership in the company. You obviously don't want your ops people to have access to your finance playbook, and there's other sensitive areas like you wouldn't want your ops people to have access into your HR playbook. So we build all those different playbooks in the final P, that final pillar that we're talking about. So that's why I say that's where the juicy stuff is, where the bulk of the work is. But
so when you're going through that, just a quick question. When you're talking about processes and like technology that kind of feeds into processes then as well. Obviously, you're going to have companies that are scaling up. A classic situation that we always bump into, like in both of our businesses, right, where you have people who are really good at what they do, at their craft, right, start a business and it starts growing, so end up having to manage a team, and now it's more management, less, working on the tools as we typically will say. And so but the knowledge of different technology solutions that are out there, like when you're putting a playbook together for, say, like an HR process, because you had mentioned like this is how you say submit time off requests or whatever. If somebody doesn't have a platform in place or technology in place, do you sort of have like a tool belt of different options where you're like, hey, here's some technology options that work really well for a company of your size or for what you're trying to accomplish here?
Absolutely, yeah. We work with a lot of different industries, but there are definitely some tech solutions that we can suggest. The engagement is not about introducing the tech. Like the engagement would typically be around codifying how you're currently doing it, and then recognizing where those gaps are. So
Okay.
That's one of the reasons why we developed Control Shift, and we haven't really spoken about this yet, but Control Shift is our process that we go through to take a business from chaos to control. That's the Control Shift.
Nice. It's like every business owner's dream.
An 8-stage process. The first 4 stages are really about getting the right information and codifying that into a playbook. So like that's the bulk of the work on the collecting, and we design, capture, codify, and then the second, the last four stages of the process is more about change management and optimization, continuous improvement. So just at a very high level, we start with control shift insights. This is a gap analysis. It's basically a report that we generate for our clients to show them how to systematize their operations, what gaps exist in their company. We send them a questionnaire, we do a couple of contact sessions with them, and then we generate them a report for them. So typically it takes about around 4 weeks to go through this whole process. Next up is we go through the design process. We pull out some of these like worksheets, and we identify like the top 10 to 15 core processes that the company might have. Really what keeps the money flowing, what keeps, like, these are the critical processes that keep operations moving and keep the business alive. So we codify, we identify what those are, and we start not codifying them yet, but we build the process worksheets for them. So we understand what they are, understand the high level steps that exist in there, understand what media, what collateral, what templates, scripts, questionnaires, checklists support that process. And we just start documenting everything. We identify who the process owners are, who can support with the process, how frequently, like, well, how do we train people on the process? How frequently do we need to do that? So these worksheets are just to kind of do the design stage. That second stage that I was talking about is design. Do some process mapping together with them to understand, like, the from the start point to the end point of the process. Like, what are how does it flow? What does it look like? What are the trigger decision points? So we go through that in the design stage. We also do the org chart design. So if they don't have an org structure, we help them develop that. If they've got something, we take a look at, is it based on the people that are in the company, or are we looking at a proper functions or roles based org chart? And then we also take a look 3 to 5 years out, like, what are their goals? What does this org chart look like in the future, and what roles are being fulfilled by, and who's fulfilling those roles, so that it can actually help them inform what the next hiring, what position they're going to hire for next. Make sure that all the roles and responsibilities, or the responsibilities rather, have been documented. All the job descriptions are in place for each of those roles. And then one thing I didn't mention is we do DISC assessments on the insights side of it. I'm going to get too deep into that. Stage 3, that's where we start capturing all of the information. So now we know what we've got. We've designed a framework for the playbook. We've got a very good structure in place. And now we start capturing the information, because we know where it's going to go and what we need to actually capture, because that's we never really know what to capture. And then we start getting the information. This is through sort of structured interviews. It's through video recordings. It's also just capturing what they've got in, like, doing a bit of an audit on their database and collecting the information, identifying, like, which is the latest single source of truth. That's what we're going to go for. Nothing worse than having like 4 different templates,
Totally.
all with the same name. You don't know which one's the latest. So we identify, like, all of those. And then we when we go into the codification of that, we build all of that into a playbook solution, so a software like Trainual or Whale, and then we actually put the links to the latest documents inside there. That single source of truth. So we make sure that they've got access to everything. The playbook also serves as a tool to inform how do we use our other softwares in their businesses. So this is for operations, but you might have an operations or project management software, and your playbook will inform you on how to actually use that. So you might be using Procore. This is how we use Procore. You might be using Microsoft Excel. This is how we're using Microsoft Excel for this function, right?
It's a good idea, so you don't get all these variations of how things are set up, right? I mean, even a lot of contractors now are using JobTread, right? How you set up your jobs, and how that integrates in with your accounting system. All these things make a really big difference. And if you don't have a set standard process, of how to do that, it ends up being, oh, oops, we set up that job that way. So now we have to do things a little bit differently in how we manage this project compared to this project, simply because we didn't have a standardized process there, right?
Yeah, 100%. So when we're doing that design stage, we're actually mapping out the life cycle of a job. So from initiation through to closeout or fulfillment. So we map out like the marketing initiatives, sales. Once you get the contract, what's the next steps? You got to start up the job. So you gotta start. You gotta build the project into whatever software is you're using. You gotta get cost codes set up. You've got to get the right people, set up the project plan. So there's different softwares that you need to activate or start working on. And you got to set those projects up in there. And it's kind of like I want to say the pre-construction phase that we're looking at here.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you mobilize a team to sites like the next, when they're on site, like what does that process look like? So we get that like life cycle right up front, and it's usually pretty high level. We don't go too deep over there. And then we start drilling down into each one of those processes and having their, because you have like process and a sub process and a sub process. So, the idea is to start very high level, and then we can start looking at the granular stuff.
Okay.
We want to make sure that we're looking at the stuff that has the highest impact on the business first.
Right. Yeah.
And then, so I spoke about like insights, which is the report, design, which is stage 2, where we're actually designing the structure and framework of the playbook. Capture, that's where we're gathering the information. Codify is when we actually put the information into a solution together with your team. Then that's the first part of the engagement. The second part of the engagement is more change management. So once you've got all the information and you're ready to rock and roll, you need to activate your team, because that's a new software that you're leveraging. It's like another tech solution that we've got here. It's like a whole. This is probably the most important one, because it's actually going to tell them how to use all the other tech that you've got in your company. And then just activate like the vision behind it. Like, this is what it does for you. This is how it empowers every one of you. So get everybody on the bus, get them trained on how to use it, how to access the information, how to download the app to their mobile device, how to work through it and find information that they might be looking for. And then we want to amplify what's working. So make sure that you're on anything that you want to have in place to scale your operations. So it might be your hiring, like onboarding. So when you want to ramp things up quickly, you want to be able to get people up to speed really quickly. So we want to take a look at your onboarding and make sure that that's super, like the structure that you've got in there is good. We really make sure that we've got like all the processes that are going to help amplify your business, your operation. We got those dialed in. And then we start creating more of a continuous improvement approach. So we start embedding process champions, or people who are kind of like accountable or take ownership of, like the whole initiative. And then we run weekly sprints and make sure that, the process owners of certain areas of the playbook, they're reviewing it, they're getting feedback. This is where we start refining the playbook. Like, why are we doing this? Why do we have these steps? So this is where we start gathering feedback from the rest of the team, and we start optimizing what we have inside there. Because it shouldn't just be like, we've done it, there's your file 13.
Yeah.
And this is something that your team should be engaged in constantly.
Yeah.
Every morning, taking something out of your playbook, running it through it, spending 10, 15 minutes with a team and saying, before you sending off to the job sites, running through that and saying, hey, let's all work through this. Like, is this the best way of doing this? Even if you're doing that once a week, I'd invite you to do it once a day. If you can set that kind of cadence up in your business. James Clear says, continuous habits. If you improve yourself 1% per day, by the end of the year, you've improved yourself by 37 times as much. So that's the goal, is just, that continuous improvement. And then last, so we at stage 7 is refine, that, continuous improvement. Very last stage is oversight. So this is where we start looking at like your KPIs, like key, like the key performance, all the metrics really that you want to be tracking as a leader or owner of your company. making sure that you got a dashboard for that. So where can we pull the information? Who's responsible for inputting those informations into, or that information into, the respective areas, and then just having a single source of truth that the leaders can look at. So, like we got the 27 leads today. We converted 3 of them. Like really good metrics that keep the business moving forward. And that's the control shift process, the framework that we operate within.
Do you find, Lyndon, that as you're working through this with business owners, do you get oh, I haven't thought about that before situations that come up?
Yeah, all the time. And I think, as soon as you start looking at your processes, the immediate thing is like you want to fix everything. And I'm not saying that that's the wrong approach, but let's fix one thing at a time. Let's get it right. Let's get the consistency in what we're doing here, the systems thinking culture embedded into your team, and we can start. We need to get project management software. Awesome. We can do that, but let's first understand what your project management, like your operations, look like. Let's document all of that before you go run off and go purchase the next software that because it is like I can share a whole lot of tech solutions with our clients, and I can say, all right, you don't have a CRM. Let's look at these few items over here. But now that's a whole nother project that they've got to run. It draws their focus to across 2 different areas. And this is the hard work, right? This is the stuff that once it's in place, it's awesome, but it's not the sexy stuff like that you would get like it doesn't become necessarily part of your day to day if you haven't put that, you haven't had the discipline to action it out from the onset, right?
But that said, I mean, if you think of it from like a compounding efficiencies perspective, right? If you can optimize the efficiency in various departments, even by like 5-10%, and that compounds out, I mean, the impact to the bottom line is significant, right? So there's a lot of value in making sure you understand how everything works in your business. And then, like you say, kind of revisiting it even, right? I mean, there's value in doing that, right? Like weekly basis. We used to do that even in a department that I used to run, a finance department, where we didn't do it every week. It was the goal, but we'd pull up an SOP and be like, is this still working the way it should work? Is there anything that we need to tweak in this, right? And so it always just keeps things running smoothly and optimizing, like say, continuous improvement, right? It's kind of like evolution, not revolution, I suppose. It's like you're slowly like evolving things to become better instead of like the fear that a lot of people have, I suppose, if they get into an engagement like this is like, am I entering into a big system overhaul that's just going to like change our entire business, and now I'm going to be paying for all this additional tech or processes? Like, it's more just, no, let's just understand the process of your business and then how you can evolve it to continuously make it better.
That's so perfect, and I think you got to walk before you can run. And really, what we're doing here is creating that discipline in documenting your codifying your knowledge. That's the walking, right? And then once you understand, and you can, because once it's been, once you've got all those thoughts and that information down, and documented, you can actually look at that critically, and you can evaluate like what's the best way to go here. That shiny object software that we might have been looking at might not be the best solution. We might need something that pairs finance with projects, or so when you're looking at it, zooming out and you're taking a look at the bigger picture. When we go through these process design worksheets, it says who are the subject matter experts, right? Who will help you document these instructions? It's so important because you got to understand the touch points, right? So if you're like in sales, for example, as soon as you get awarded a new contract, you're gonna hand that over to finance. You're gonna hand that over to projects. But when you're getting that inbound lead, you're getting it from marketing essentially. So you're going to bring everybody into that touches that process in some way to contribute to the development of your actual process. And
Mm-hmm.
then you're looking at it from the lens of the entire organization and not just in your silo, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
That's so important. And I think that's the biggest problem that a lot of organizations have is we're going to do our process. We're going to optimize our department. That means nothing if you're not tying it in with the rest of the business. Your department might be working like a well-oiled machine, but you're not there just for your department. You're there for the greater good of like what the business is
Mm-hmm.
doing. And you're like a piece of the puzzle or a gear in the system, right? Like in the gearbox in the transmission. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're not connected to, like if your gears are not meshing with the other part of the organization, the engine's not going to run.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be optimized for performance, and that's why you need to dial everybody else in, and share, like, this is what our process is, like this is where we touch your department, this is where we touch
Mm-hmm.
your department. Have you got some feedback, like why are we actually giving you this information? What is it for? What does it serve you?
Right.
Let's understand that. And that's where having these workshops and meetings together with the clients really make a real difference, is because
Mm-hmm.
actually see, oh, we've been doing it for them, but they don't really need this information.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, now I actually understand like the value behind having this part of like the process handed over to them over there. So
Mm-hmm. Probably helps avoid, probably optimizes efficiency in that you're eliminating stuff that doesn't have to happen, right? Like
yeah,
non-value add activities. And then probably also in that it probably starts to reduce rework, right? Because if you have something being done by one department that's upstream from another department, and then they hand it off at some point, but it's not totally done, it's going to bounce back to this department. And then they got to, there's like back and forth volleyball going on with certain things. And it's like, okay, definition of done in this department is this, right? Once that happens, nice handoff over to the next department. So is that kind of the idea there, that you're helping
yeah.
codify that, where it's like, this is when it's ready to move on to the next stage. This is who is accountable to that. This is what the triggers are. Next stage.
Yeah. And we're also through that entire, like mapping everything out, we can actually see who is responsible, like who's accountable for this result. If it's a handover of a package from one department to another, like they're accountable for that package being complete, accurate, so that the next department can run with it and be, confident in like everything that we've received is we're going to run with that. And if there's a mistake and we pick it up further down the line, well, we can go back to them and say, hey, you guys messed up here. What's going on? Is there is there an issue with the process, with the system, or did you just not follow protocol, essentially?
Right.
Yeah. And that
Okay.
that's another conversation then.
Yeah, right. Totally, because now that's a people thing, right? There's a process and there's a training, and then there's the people who execute. So just curious, as we kind of get to the end here, Lyndon, what types of businesses would best benefit from like an engagement like this, like actually going through and creating a playbook? Because you maybe on one end you've got, like, we always call them clipboard Joe, right? Like individual person who's kind of doing their business all on their own. They're the ones on the tools, kind of doing everything. They probably have it all in their head, right? And then on the far end, you've got like a fairly large enterprise, multiple departments, a lot of systems already in place. So within that spectrum, or maybe throughout, what would you say would be a business that could really benefit from this?
I think if you're under 10 employees, focus on sales and marketing and just getting the work, and then delegating it. You can start building your own systems. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely some education that we can share with the smaller companies in that respect. As soon as you've got multiple crews and you've got more like teams to manage, more departments to manage, and it's usually when you start tipping over from like 10 or more employees that you've got these multiple teams to manage. Excuse me. That's where you're going to get value out of starting to codify really what makes your operations and your business great. The good stuff. So, and that's also where you're going to get a better return on your time. So like I say, I mean, if you're under 10 employees, just focus on your sales and marketing, bringing in more revenue, because that revenue is going to empower you to bring on more people. That people is that's where your problems are going to come in. So you don't have to have like a super solid foundation for 10 people, but when you start getting to like the 50 or 100 employees, you want to make sure that you've solidified a lot of that,
Mm-hmm.
like foundation, because
Otherwise, I
other
guess there's scaling inefficiency, right?
absolutely. So if you're tipping over to like 10 or more employees, start looking at it, definitely.
Okay.
I think the sweet spot for it is 25 25 employees, definitely. Once you start getting to 50 to 100 employees, you're feeling the pain.
Okay. So if you have less than 10 employees, but you had mentioned, I think you said like chaos to control, right? So as the business owner is like, okay, well, I've got 5 employees, but things are really busy, things are crazy. I feel like there's chaos. I want control. Could they still benefit from something like this?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's more taking blocking out and being intentional with their time to start working through, just putting things in place. And you don't necessarily have to have a digital playbook for your team. You can actually just start codifying that information into like a Google Drive or a
Mm,
OneDrive. The problem is when your team starts getting bigger, people need to be able to find that information easily. And if it's scattered all over a Google Drive, that's when it starts becoming an issue.
mm.
Templates, how-to procedures, different departments start saving things in different locations. That's why we have a central knowledge hub when
Yeah.
when your team starts scaling. So yes, absolutely. I mean, even if you're a solopreneur, start documenting your process, like your how-to information. This is how to, because this is my recipe for success, right? This is
Hmm.
how I'm successful at what I'm doing as a solopreneur. And then when you start hiring, bringing on those first hires, it might even just be a virtual assistant for 20 hours a week. They've at least got a process to follow. You
Right.
come
Yeah.
up to speed relatively quickly. You don't have to invest a whole lot of time into them. Just micromanaging them. You can just be like, this is a process to follow. These are the results that we're looking for. Off you go,
Hmm.
and you can just measure like what really matters there. You can just you don't have to micromanage it, but you can measure what matters.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I guess even a nice quick hack for anyone who's kind of looking for a good starting point too is, and I think we've talked about this together as well. Like if you use a platform like Loom where you can do a video walkthrough of how to do something, it
Mhm.
creates a transcript of what you say in the video. You can take the transcript, you can throw that into ChatGPT and say, give me an SOP or standard operating procedure for this. And then by filming how to do what you're doing, you now
Yeah.
have a video training resource for somebody, and then you also have a nice written SOP. I mean, obviously read through it, vet it. Don't just take everything
Sure.
ChatGPT gives you as being done, but like go through it. But then
Yeah.
you've got these two things ready to go too, right? As a starting point for anybody who's maybe not doing any of this, it's like the next step on the road to really good systems before you then start getting into putting together a full playbook.
Yeah. No, that's one of our favorite sort of tech hacks, or I don't even know if hack's the right word there, but it's like our secret sauce is, like exactly what you've said. And you can use Loom, any screen recording. You just want to make sure that you're talking through the process in the screen
Mm-hmm.
recording. And then when you extract that transcript and you plug it into GPT, you want to prompt it with you want to give it a really good prompt. And it might
Okay.
not be an SOP, it might just be a work instruction. It might be it could be anything that's like procedural, but or instructional rather.
Mm-hmm.
So you might just say, you're a world class, whatever the job function is. I want you to generate a standard operating procedure leveraging the transcript below, and then it'll churn something out for you. It'll be awesome. And you can even give it some context, right? Like, this is our business. This is what we do. This is when we're out in the field and we're doing a specific job. Here's a transcript for the procedure. Leverage this information to generate a standard operating procedure or a work instruction, whatever it is that you're looking for. Chat GPT is your friend. It's
as you're walking through that, Lyndon, sorry to jump in there. I was just thinking, like, even if you're not doing a screen walkthrough with something like Loom or whatever it might be, you can still just talk through the procedure, right? And instead of, because I think if someone were to sit down and have to start be like, okay, step one, and you start thinking through it, you maybe even lose the momentum. But if you just kind of freestyle a walkthrough, just talk through the process, right? When I go to site, this is what we do. This is who I connect with first. These are the things to make sure are done. Safety items, and just kind of talk through it. You've got the transcript, and then do, as you say, like prompt ChatGPT to put together the procedure.
So we're one of those companies where when we jump on a call with you, online call, we've got one of those note takers in the back there. The reason we have got those note takers is, sometimes when we're having a call, we're going to be saying, like, talk me through the process.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
And, when we're done with a call, you've just given me that information once. Now I can go into that transcript that we've got there, and I can extract that information. I can say, this is what the client's given us, generate an SOP work instruction. This is the information that we've got here. So it just makes it a whole lot easier to start capturing the right information. And then when we're codifying it, all it takes is for the client to review it and say, that's awesome. How did you get all of this from that one conversation that we had? It's like, that's our magic, our secret sauce.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting, and just to maybe like drill it down to just a typical everyday example, like when you're barbecuing hamburgers, for example, like you need to kind of have a system to do it properly, right? You want to make sure the grill is clean, right? You want to make sure you flip them at the right time. They got to be just at 160. You don't want them too hot, otherwise they dry out, right? And so all these things, if you have the steps in place, you'll have some pretty awesome barbecued hamburgers when you're done, right? Yeah. But if you don't do those steps, you're going to have gross stuff on the hamburgers, it's going to be overly dry or whatever it might be. And so you don't want to have that with your business, right? You want to have a really good business where it's a good experience for the clients, it works well, and it's ultimately profitable. And so understanding those steps in each of those departments all along the way is super important to having a really good business. So thanks, Lyndon. This is very helpful. Anything else you want to kind of add before we wrap up here?
I think, like a lot of companies, struggle with where to start. I think, if you're just walking away from this call today, if you don't know where to start, just pick out like your top, like your core processes. So take a look at your customer journey. So what are you doing? What are the processes involved in generating a lead? You're bringing that lead into your company. What are you doing to convert that lead? So your marketing process, your sales process, and then take a look at how you're getting them set up. How do you fulfill the job? What's your closeout process? So just take a look at the very high level areas, and then like that customer journey essentially, and then write that down. So we've got a sales process, and then what is the triggers, the start and finish triggers. And if you guys, like if you want some worksheets or something, you want some information, we're not attached. Like this is not like it's our proprietary, like we've got it branded, but if you want them, they're yours. If you just want to do some of the stuff for yourself, I'll give that stuff away. That's, like
awesome.
We're here to support you where we can.
That's awesome. Yeah, thanks, Lyndon.
Yeah. So that's a great place to start. Play around with tools like Lucid Charts or Visio and get familiar on how to do some process mapping. And then definitely jump into AI. Like Josh mentioned, go sit and talk through a process and let it generate an SOP for you. If you want to build out a checklist, say I'm building out a checklist for the following. These are some of the items that I currently have. Is there anything that I'm missing? Like have that conversation with AI, and you can start building like a pretty comprehensive structure in place. Put it in like just documents, just like a Google Doc or a Word doc, spreadsheets. Start keeping like track of like what you have, all that collateral. It is going to get a lot and big and bulky, and that's when you need to start moving that data into a playbook. A lot of people are like, how much how much time should I be investing in in developing procedures? I say like probably 5 to 10% of your week should be invested in developing and refining what you've got. And
That's so
that's
working on your business, right?
2 to 4 hours a week. Find two time blocks in your week where you're building what you have and refining, or building what you do and refining what you have in that respect. So it's like less than 10%, and the rest of the time you can do the fulfillment, you can do the sales, business development. But this is really, like you say, working on your business. This is where you're going to get a business that's scalable. Yeah.
Excellent, Lyndon. Well, thanks very much. It's very helpful, super important topic, so that people know how their business runs, and again, can continuously improve it, which is super important, especially for people looking to grow and scale their businesses, which is what we talk about here on the Business Growth Factor. So thanks again. Thanks for everyone who joined us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.